Shalom friends, welcome back to Parsha Reactions Vayetzei, Part 2, The Conclusion. Yaakov has just discovered that the woman he married last night was not in fact Rachel, but Leah. Lavan had swapped them. Yaakov says to him, "What the actual fuck, dude? I worked 7 years in order to marry Rachel?" And Lavan is like, "Whoa, you are being so culturally insensitive right now. Our custom is to have the older daughter get married before the younger daughter. Just like give it a week and then you can marry Rachel too. But you will have to put in another 7 years of work for her." Kids, this is a great example of why it's important to have contracts in writing, and also to not use human beings as payment. Yeah, so then Yaakov had 2 wives. Hashem felt bad for Leah. Not only did she need glasses at a time where there weren't any, but she was also married to a man who was not in love with her, but was in love with her sister, who was also her co-wife. This is a trash situation. God compensates her for her angst by making sure she has a lot of babies. Reuven, Shimon, Levi, Yehuda. But Rachel, on the other hand, was not getting pregnant. And she gets to a really depressing emotional state. She tells Yaakov that unless he gives her children, she is going to expire. Yaakov gets so mad at her. He's like, "What, so I'm God now? God's the one who denied you children." Wow. 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 Men will really see you at a well, kiss you, burst into tears, work for your father for 7 years in order to marry you, and then become an ass as soon as they become your sister's baby daddy. Tale as old as time. Unfortunately, driven to extremes by all the patriarchy in a story about a literal patriarch, Rachel takes a page out of Sarah's book. She gives Yaakov her maid Bilhah to be her surrogate. Bilhah has 2 sons with Yaakov, Dan and Naphtali. But Leah refuses to fall behind on her birth metrics. Because, as we know, the only value a woman really has is how many babies she can pop out. So Leah then gives her maid Zilpah also to Yaakov. He doesn't need any more. Zilpah gives birth to Gad and Asher. Tensions in the family get worse and messier as the kids age. Like, Rachel and Leah get into a fight over some mandrakes that Reuven finds in the sandbox one day. Rachel asks for some of the mandrakes, and Leah is like, "No, bitch, you already stole my husband. Now you want to take my son's mandrakes." And Rachel is like, "Fine, he'll sleep with you tonight. Just give me the mandrakes." So at this point in the story, I had to remind myself of a very important thing. It is so easy to fall into the trap of focusing on the bitchiness, the competition between the sisters, to the extent where I completely lost focus on what had pushed them into the scenario in the first place. Lavan's behavior, Yaakov's behavior, the structure of their society. It's mind-blowing, especially when the husband that they're fighting over is a passive-aggressive blessing thief. Ladies, no man is worth this, but especially not him. And this, my friends, is exactly why we need feminism. So Leah has more kids, Issachar and Zebulun, and finally a daughter, Dinah. Finally, God remembered, oh, Rachel hasn't had any kids yet. So she has a son named Yosef. Yaakov wants to leave Lavan's employment, take his 10 billion wives and children and livestock, and go home. Honestly, I wish he would leave too, but neither him nor I are going to get what we want just yet. He tells Lavan that he wants to take certain sheep and goats that have certain markings as his payment. Obviously, Lavan says, "Oh yeah, sure, absolutely," and then immediately double-crosses him by removing those animals from the flocks. Look, I zoned out during this part. But basically what happens is that with Hashem's guidance, Yaakov does some genetic engineering on the flocks to get the animals he wants. And God says, yeah, it's time to bounce. Go back to the land you were born in. Yaakov conferences in Rachel and Leah, and he's like, "Your dad sucks. I'm going to report him to the Better Business Bureau. Pack everything because we're leaving." And they're like, "Yeah, we already know that he sucks. He treated us like we were commodities and used up our purchase value. So, oh well, if God takes from him and gives to our children, oopsie whoops." Yes, exactly. Rob him, ladies. And in the case of Rachel, she does. She takes his idols. I think to sell on eBay. And then she would have been able to buy as many mandrakes as she wanted. So they pack up the camels and head back on the road to Canaan. They are booking it across the Euphrates. They are heading towards Gilad. They pass Margaret Atwood. But Lavan is chasing them and he and his people are catching up. But don't worry. Hashem pops into Lavan's dream like, "Hey buddy, just a little intimidation dream here. Don't mess with Yaakov, I'm watching you." Lavan wakes up and wisely decides to switch tactics to guilt. He meets with Yaakov and he's like, "I'm aggrieved. You left without saying goodbye." Hurt feelings. I can't actually do anything because I am terrified of your God. But speaking of, have you seen my gods anywhere? Yaakov is like, no, whoever stole them shouldn't remain alive. Foreshadowing. They search all of this stuff and they are finding nothing. And finally they get to Rachel's tent. But she's like, I'm sorry, I can't stand up. I'm on my period. Which was convenient because she was actually just sitting on the idols. So they never find those. Yaakov is like, oh, okay, I get it. You've got a lot of chutzpah. I worked my ass off for you for 20 years. You got rich because of me, and now you're accusing me of theft. When you were the one who kept changing the wages, well, guess what? I'm acting my wage now. Since Lavan can't do anything, they end up just making a pact. And to mark this pact, Yaakov sets up a pillar. And then they have an awkward meal, like a Thanksgiving dinner where you really can't stand your relatives and you can't wait till they leave. Lavan said, this rock is our witness. Don't treat my daughters badly by taking other wives. Sir, shut the fuck up. Exit the story now. Now, get out. Next morning, he finally leaves. Ugh, thank God. Yaakov and his family continue, and up ahead, they see some angels. In the next Parsha, I am delighted to report that they all resolved their issues and lived happily ever after. Who am I kidding? I can't lie to you. They don't.